Yes, they did. Great game. Only gave up on them about twice.
I did when they got down 6.
Yeah, I muted it and decided.
Oh, there was more to it. I was picking
my
up on
gosh,
bits and
is that
pieces,
right?
but I didn't know enough to even. You're going to get an earful. Like I'm trying to get in my door, unlock the door. Tim.
It's very complicated in a lot of ways.
It looked like it.
Yeah, I was going to say.
My 15-year-old grandma.
Up until that point in time, we had nothing, no
Showed
mojo.
much signs of life.
My daughter hates I have the finger test. She has to put her hands to her side, and it's got to go longer than her fingertips.
She is gorgeous.
She should have bought the dress, but that's okay. Okay, shall we start, or do we have to wait till exactly 7? Good enough? Yeah. Okay, good enough. Let's call this meeting to order. We have all 7 members present, and we will begin by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. And I know you'll all be disappointed, but I really don't have any flag trivia. Actually, I do, but that's okay. We'll just continue. Well, they had them pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America because there were so many immigrants coming to the United States that when the original pledge was, I pledge allegiance to the flag and to the republic, they put in of the United States of America so everybody was aware that they were pledging allegiance to that flag, not the Irish flag or the Scottish flag or the German flag or wherever they came from.
We should do a USD290 pledge.
So anyway.
So we'll know where we're at.
It's better than the
We do have a consent agenda. Oh, we need to approve the agenda first. I'm sorry.
So moved. Second.
Okay. A motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign, 7-0. And the consent agenda, you have all had it and have had a chance to look over it.
I make a motion we approve the consent agenda as
You guys just go
presented.
here or automatic? Okay, that's all.
All in favor of approving the consent agenda as printed, please raise your right hand.
I do want to know, though, on that
Oh,
Lincoln
same sign.
parking lot thing, what was that last picture? It was out of somebody's window, and
That last
it
sideways
was a picture of the parking lot, but it didn't really show me much.
Yeah, I don't know. Dale sent that to me, and I couldn't figure it out either, and I couldn't get it off the document. So I thought you guys can figure it out.
Yeah, that's the picture right there. The side, it's sideways, but it's
too
out
dark.
somebody's window, which was partially open.
So we approve that too. So
It was a pretty sunset. I don't know.
Yeah.
we have no comments from the public, so let's get right to the good stuff. We have a bond project update from both Amber and Josh, and I hear you're presenting together. Okay.
5.01.
Yes.
See, you want the presentation.
I get
What? Presentation. This is the phasing document.
SD board presentation.
Sure. And you all received the longer booklet, right, with the narratives in there. So this is just a shortened version we
Great
really
reading,
just
by the
pulled
way.
out. I'm sorry?
Great reading, by the way. I read every page.
It's a great read.
I did.
Nobody
I
fell
read it
asleep
too.
while you were reading?
No.
So this is just a shortened version. Really, we just wanted to put in here kind of some of the highlight options. If you go to the first page is the floor plan that I think you all have seen before. The Ottawa Elementary, as some of you toured, with the new group rooms in the in each of the wings, and then the new sped wing added on there next to the administration, and a few other different modifications that we've made, talking with some of the staff. And so this is the most up-to-date floor plan that we have right now. So this is what we would move forward with and continue to develop from here. And then this is the site plan that you, as well, you should have seen about a week ago. Kind of some of the overall or the overarching things to point out are that the most of the traffic is coming from the new road that enters into the site from Eisenhower. So parents dropping off would come from Eisenhower into the new road and then turn into the site. And we've got room for approximately 50 cars to stack in there, which is ample room for an elementary of this size so that cars can stack all within the site and no stacking out on Eisenhower. So that's an important thing to make sure they're not impeding any traffic. And then we also, we're working through this through exiting with the city. Right now, you exit the same way that you've come into the site. And so that would be back out onto Eisenhower. There's a possibility that we would be able to exit out another way out of the site. We would prefer, but we have to work through that stuff with the city as far as some of their regulations with the intersection and distances in the traffic that already is flowing on Eisenhower. So we'll work through all that, but this is the way that we do a lot of our elementary, so it is right now a very workable scheme. And then the other entry to the site is from 19th that you see up there. That's a very small loop, and that's for buses. So that's where your 3 to 4 buses will come every morning and every evening to drop off. And if you remember where the floor plan was, that's dropping off right into the commons area. So the kids can all gather in the commons beforehand or after school before they get released for their buses. And there's a little bit of the drawing out there that has a little bit of hatch in it. That's kind of shows you some hard-scaped areas. So the kids would have some area to walk out there. And they're not walking in grass or anything. So they would have sidewalk to get out onto each one of the buses. To the right of that is what we call the hard play area. So that's where they would have a hard surface and some hard equipment some climbing equipment to play on, similar to what we saw at some of the elementaries we toured. But in addition, that area can serve as extra parking in the event of like a teacher staff work day or an evening event where they need some additional parking. That would be gated off, but it could be opened up to be additional parking for whenever the school needs it. Without that parking, we have, I think it's 150 or so parking spots throughout the site. So there's plenty for every day through staff and through any visitors that are coming to the site, but that's just additional parking for those times of the year where you have more people coming to the school. The 2 round circles are the soft play areas, separated out by ages, so the younger kids can be separated out from the larger kids. And then there's a couple play fields out in the very kind of east side there. And then I think I didn't mention on the west side, inside that loop where they're looping where the parents are dropping off, that would be your visitor parking. So nice, good, straight access right into the front door of the school. So really, your people sitting at admin are going to see everyone that's coming in to the site and coming right into the front door. The other thing to point out about this, too, we've worked with the staff closely to monitor what we want to do around the whole building at every single exit and entry. So there will be no doors that anyone can be able to come in or out of without the staff knowing that those people are coming in and out of them. So whether it has a card access on it and then that knows what person used their card, or it's a door without any hardware because it's only for exiting, or the door at the front, we worked out that we'll have a buzzer system so that the receptionist has to physically buzz someone into the building. So that's going to be a very secure building all the way around. They'll know exactly who's there and who's not there. So, and then I think that's, yeah. Do we have photos in there?
Yeah, there should be photos in this one.
There were photos in the other.
I did not get
They were
photos, but I've
blanks.
seen them.
Yeah.
They're on the blanks probably. They're not showing up.
Yeah. Is there going to be any difference in interior room temperature on those south rooms on the hallways versus the north rooms because of solar heat? I mean, will they be? You know what I'm saying?
Yes. They'll all be able to be, and Rod, you can step up and help me if you want. They'll all be able to be adjusted, so they'll have whatever temperature range we decide, couple degree temperature range where they can adjust it. But they are accounted there. Our engineers will account for the different loads in each of those rooms. So they account for when it's south-facing glass, that accounts for higher loads. Any other questions on anything?
On the building, is there a flat roof on it, or?
So it's a combination of it is flat, technically a flat roof, what we would call a flat roof. There are some areas with sloped structure, and then some areas with flat structure and tapered insulation. So it will be a membrane type roof, and then have tapered insulation that helps get all the drainage to the internal drainage system on the roof. So. Any other questions on the building or the site? Otherwise, go ahead.
Yeah, I got a couple. One is, I know you've addressed that the traffic study and this site plan don't match. And so which document right now are you leaning towards, this document or the traffic study?
Well, so this is the conservative version. This is what we did. This matches up with what the city has told us so far that they require us to do.
Okay.
Traffic study, what it has turned up is that we could do based on the traffic that is already out there on Eisenhower 19th, we could possibly have more entries and exits to our site without really affecting the traffic on Eisenhower 19th in an adverse way. So next step would be to take that traffic study to the city and to talk through those options with them, and ultimately they have, buy off whatever a traffic study says. They have to agree with it and buy into it. So right now this matches up. This site plan, the city has seen it and has had buy off on it, and we're on the same page. So.
Okay. And are we going to talk the rest of the document? I mean, is that what Josh is doing?
Yes, so he'll talk, if nobody has any more questions on this stuff, Josh will talk through the dollars and cents.
Okay, so mine's quite a bit shorter. It's a good number. You can see that this is just a rough breakdown of where the costs are associated with the development. The first thing I would point out that this is construction cost only, so this isn't furniture, fixtures, technology, any of that kind of stuff. The number that we were comparing against is the number that was allocated within the bond, and you can see the breakdown between the building. The site work and parking is the elements on the property itself. And then we've broken out the costs for the Eisenhower improvements as well as the future road that runs along the south. A couple of comments about the methodology and how we approach this. We do two different things. We use historical cost data. We do our own takeoffs and we price it up that way. But then we also send the documents out to subcontractors that we've worked with in the past and have them go through and price it up and do a conceptual estimate so we can compare both of those, flush out any questions or inconsistencies to develop the pricing that we have here. In this case, this is a pretty straightforward pricing exercise, in part because it's a brand new building, it's a clean site, as well as the fact that it's been designed before, so there was a lot of data that we could go back and look at the previous plans and specs to answer a lot of the questions. So this is where we sit. I think the thing I would point out with the delta there at the bottom is that would be a contingency because there are some items that we haven't identified yet that aren't set in stone, so to speak, as you touched on with the site plan and the improvements to the infrastructure. So, like I said, mine's shorter, so I can answer any questions you have.
Okay. In your document, you talk about Sloan auto flush, and then you talk about Moen water faucets. Are you giving the subs the option or alternative? Is that how you're doing that, or are we specifying just those two?
Well, correct. That'd be the basis of design, but I would assume that there'd be others allowed.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
On page 3, we talked about 2006 IBC, but the documents refer quite extensively to the 2012. Is that a typo or?
No, it's not. A lot of our engineers will design to 2012 IBC. So I'm sorry, the Energy Building Code. So there are a lot of fire alarm and some of the engineering systems that our guys will design to. 2012 is kind of more of a. We're going to that in a lot more of our designs. It's good for the buildings. It's good for you. For economically, it makes more sense. So we do a lot of that. So it's not a typo. We do that, and if it's in your benefit or in the city's benefit, they're not going to make us revert back and design to an older code. So, and I think you'll see it mostly, like I said, when it applies to like the energy code or.
Energy, structural, electrical, mechanical. I mean, I saw it throughout.
Yeah,
the
which
document.
those all exactly, and those all tie back to the energy code. So,
Okay. So you don't think it's confusing that you're referring to both?
No, our plans will very clearly lay all that out when we go to submit them to the city. We'll explain exactly to them which codes we are adhering to.
Okay. All right. Same question on mechanical and HVAC. You know, you're going to give a choice of a preferred system, but, you know, I'm pretty keen that, you know, engineers like to always tack in a special piece of equipment or a special specification you have to hit. Maybe one manufacturer or the other can only hit. Are we going to design this so that literally multiple manufacturers could spec out the HVAC?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, throughout every single one of our systems, we don't really close any specification ever because it's not good for you, right? It'll drive your pricing up.
You understand what I mean?
Absolutely. So
that's something that you see sometimes.
Well, that being said, we still have almost always a basis of design.
Sure.
For instance, the mechanical units can vary in size and weight, and so if we have to start somewhere. So we have a basis of design that they design to, and then there would maybe be 2 or 3 other manufacturers allowed into, as long as they meet the specifications, they would still be allowed in.
Right.
So yeah, we'll have more than one in 99% of the categories.
But the system wouldn't change, Harold. I mean,
Correct. A 5-ton or 10-ton would.
The manufacturer could change.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know, but you know what I mean by they slip in a little spec that.
One benefit, though, and I'm sure Rod can talk more about it, is, I mean, this is a very common system, so you have, what you're talking about is not as prevalent with the type of system we're talking about here.
Your staff lounge, where you're calling out a high-efficiency unit, we're also calling out electric heat auxiliary. You know, some of the systems on the market now will go down to like 13 below. Do you still think we need that auxiliary heat strip? That just spins a meter right off the wall.
That one's way over my head. Rod, do you want to help me with that?
That's one we'll have to look at in design development and change. That's probably a typo or a mistake in the lounge. Unless it's that teacher's lounge has got a split system in it. Or that's the one by the cafeteria.
Yeah.
That's,
Yep.
There won't be electric heat there.
Okay. And you're comfortable with not, and I understand commissioning normally is high efficiency where you're using a different system. You're comfortable that we're not commissioning, which means, you know, is that acceptable in your opinion?
I don't see a particular need for it in this case. I mean, a normal testing balancing process is going to get it where you need to be.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
And I notice we're using a separate company to do the checks and balance. I think that's good.
A certified test and balance report, yeah.
That's good. And then my last one, I promise is my last one. Photometrics, when you talk about light candle being at 1 foot, which is, you know, a good baseline, will you do a photometrics of the site? And when you do that, can we see that as a board?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, we'll do it. Yes, we'll show it if you want to see it.
thank you. Because lighting is a huge issue with safety and, I guess I'm sorry, I said under lighting, I had one.
No, you're
Is
done.
I'm done. I noticed we're doing exterior as LED and some other stuff, but on the inside, we're not calling out LED. Could you walk me through that?
Yes. So really all that came from was that what we put in the documents was exactly what everyone saw at Oak Grove. So those are some of the things that's great that we have a contingency line there, because if you as a board decide, you know, it's really important that we put LED throughout this whole school, that's great, and we'll have him price it out, and if it's something we can fit in, then we can change it. So that's really the only reason, is that what got shown at Oak Grove is exactly what we had him price out and put in these documents so far. We do like to do, I mean, LED, of course, is the best option, but it is going to cost more money.
It is. Have you done the cost analysis for the city of Ottawa?
No, we have not yet.
Electric rates somewhat higher than some.
Right.
I think the return would be even greater. And all my commercial projects now, we're doing LED across the board, just for maintenance and for the whole 9 yards, and then cheaper utility costs down the road.
Absolutely. And cheaper maintenance too, because you're not changing out the
absolutely.
bulbs. So yeah, it's something that we'll study, and Josh can do a pretty quick cost analysis to even let you know what that price tag would be.
Very good, thank you.
Sure.
Do any of the rest of you have questions?
What's your mind?
Mine is much more mundane than Harold's. When I was reading through the documents, you know, when we visited the schools, we were in awe of all the TAC boards. When I read the document, it said TAC board in the hallways and the media center, but there's going to be TAC in the rooms too,
Yes,
right?
absolutely, yes. And that's something we'll get to when I talked about that next level of design that we'll get into. You'll see a classroom and all its little components, but yes, a classroom will have tack boards in it and marker boards, a plethora of all that. So inside the classroom
That
as well.
was the thing everyone wanted.
Yes, absolutely. As well as in the corridors. You remember there
Oh,
was
sure,
the big boards in the
absolutely,
corridors too.
yes.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Anything else for anybody? All right. What we need to do as a board is to approve the phasing document separate from Josh's bid. So if you would look at your agenda, there are words that need to be used in order to approve all of this.
Madam
so we
President,
cover it.
I move to approve the schematic design submitted as presented to move forward into design development for the new elementary school.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0. Thank you. And also the same procedure is to be followed for the budget.
I move we approve the budget for the schematic design presented for the new elementary school.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you all. Go Royals.
You know, the exciting part of this is it was about a year ago this week that we started our first visioning meeting. So it's so exciting to be at this part of it all. So,
It is. So,
all right.
we now have a presentation about the mechanical aspects.
That's you, Rod, and I told him how exciting you are. So
I better.
you better.
And you are going to explain 2 pipes, 4 pipes, right?
I'm
So,
until your
Susan,
eyes glaze
this is
over.
for you.
I know, it's just going to be, I'm
we
going to be
can. I got it's.
hypertensive by the end of
Listen,
this.
I told my wife I'd be home at 9, so we got. And I live a little far away, but we got plenty of time to get all the questions we need answered.
That's all I want to know is why didn't they give us what they said?
I can't
know.
answer that.
I know.
But
Are you going
before I
to?
start on that, I wanted to just follow up on your question about LEDs in classrooms.
Okay.
So LEDs in parking lot lighting make sense in just about every jurisdiction in the United States today. The fixture costs are the fixture cost and the light levels are far superior to any other product on the market, and so that's a given. In the classrooms, it's a little bit different, and a lot of our analysis teeters right now on if you want to dim the light, if you have any desire to dim the lights or change light level, which in classrooms some people do, some people don't. Kind of depends on what your deal is. If you've got a desire to do that, then LED wins all the time. If you want to be a little bit more sort of not quite as modern, then it has to be analyzed with the T8s, the new T8s with some of the ballasts that are out there, even for your utility rate structure here. But I think in your case, the pricing, here's the other sort of interesting thing is the pricing's changing daily, monthly, and the products are getting better. And so the analysis we did even 2 or 3 months ago is different than the analysis today. And it continues to evolve. And if you're going to spend a little bit extra money on anything, absolutely that's the right answer. Okay. Here we go. What the plan is? Which one does this work? Perfect. Let me go here first. So what I want to do today is we're going to talk about the system that you have at the high school, a couple of ideas on how we can modify or augment that system, and then I also want to spend a few minutes and talk a little bit about some of the energy analysis that we've done, which is why I understand your utility rate structure and things like that. So that's really the plan. Before we start, I just wanted to, some of the rules of the road that we always talk about when we do HVAC projects or any of our building projects is every instructional, I think I heard this from somebody too, every instructional space has a thermostat that will maintain the temperature. So it doesn't make any sense to have north and south exposures that don't work and you have to tolerate temperatures that aren't. Teachers have enough to worry about. They shouldn't have to worry about what the temperature in the space is. We want to heat and cool by zone, heat and or cool by zone all the time. So you can, if you choose to simultaneously heat and cool, it's available if you need to. And then the HVAC system, some people think it just provides the temperature in the space. The fact is that we're going to control humidity with it, and then it's also a desirable condition to bring fresh air and to pressurize the building. And so those are the sort of 3/4 things that really the HVAC system is doing while it's operating. And so those are kind of our baseline criteria that we think about and we judge when we start. Okay? All right, so the current system that's in the high school today was installed about 2006, and it is a two-pipe system. And I've got a diagram to show, so we're all on the same page on what a two-pipe system is. There are two central plants there, one that serves the classroom area, the other one that serves, I believe the auxiliary gym is the space that it's in. And then the main gymnasium has packaged rooftop units with gas heat that serve those spaces. The control system you have is also that vintage, and that's the control system's what helps schedule the equipment, and your maintenance staff allows them to monitor and see what's going on and adjust temperatures remotely. That is also 2006. I can tell you 2006 to 2015-16 is a generation of improvements and changes that we want to help you get through. Okay, so here's a little diagram of what a two-pipe system is, and this is the first part of it. So if you're in heating, then you can pump hot water around the building. And that little diagram of the air handling unit there, you've got one deck, which is called the heat deck. That's getting hot water. And the other is what we call bypass. And there's a terminal unit at each classroom. And depending on the space, the temperature requirement in that classroom, it will blend that air to achieve the temperature you want. When you're in cooling, it's the same deal, except for you have cooling going through that single coil in the unit, and the bypass duct is delivering untreated air. There's a couple things that are already you're experiencing over there. You occasionally get high humidity conditions when it's cooler outside and humid, because you're not putting enough air across that coil. You're bypassing. The other thing that's really important that they run into, that they really run into over there, that's a problem, and you guys have probably all heard this before, but if it's really hot out, everything's swell. If it's really cold out, everything's swell. But if it's hot one day and cold the next day, it's a disaster. Mm-hmm. And that's not news to anybody that's in this room. You all have heard it and probably experienced it as you've been out there and in that building. So, and maybe before I go, we can stop right here. Anybody, is that clear? One thing I wanted to add is, in the central plant areas, in the mechanical rooms where the chillers are, where the boilers are, where the pumps are, all that piping is set up to be a four-pipe system. So that infrastructure is all set up to add two more pipes to go out of those rooms and serve the building. I can't explain why the other pipe. I have a intuition on what happened, but the fact of the matter is that the central plant's all set up for four-pipe, but the piping coming out of the classroom is not.
You want to share that intuition with Susan?
Yes. She wants to know.
Why didn't
Give her a theory.
The theory is it was probably originally designed as a four-pipe system and got somewhere close to bid day or after bid day, the magic wand to get it in budget. To get it in budget happened, and that's what happened. And what I tell you is that's what they call a multi-zone unit right there that you're seeing that diagram. And what a lot of people do is they put a heating coil in one duct and a cooling coil in the other duct. So see where that bypass duct is empty? You put a cooling coil in that duct and then an extra set of pipes, and voila, you can do whatever you want, whenever you want. So it'd be really easy if you were, say, $1 million over budget to come and take a racer and take those pipes out and take that coil, the other coil out, and go on.
You're talking about the original construction
design,
of the
original
school.
construction. Yeah, we haven't talked to all the great stuff I got planned. This is what you got today. Okay? That's that one. All right, so I want to talk to you about two different options, and there are 20 different options probably we can consider in details and things like that we can talk about as part of each of these main concepts. But I'd like to kind of warm you up to two ideas that I think make the most sense based on some of the preliminary calculations we've done and some of our experience in facilities like this. And the first one I want to talk to you about is what you were hoping to get, more than 10 years ago, which is a four-pipe system. And essentially what I'm talking about here is adding two more pipes and adding that coil I just talked about, so that you can run chilled water and hot water. I really would rather you didn't run them simultaneously, but at least the switchovers would be much easier to do, and your ability to do things like dehumidify and transitional days and things like that would be much greater enhanced with a system like this. So this would be heating coils in the coils are already sized for cooling, so we'd actually add chilled water pipes and then add a heating coil. So I don't want to get anybody confused, but that's kind of what would happen. New units for all the new additions, and then I really recommend that we upgrade the building automation system to something a little bit more modern that has just some of the parts that are available today, or the parts that are required to maintain the equipment you have are starting to become less and less available, and getting more and more expensive to fix. And so on all my options, you're due to upgrade that control system in there anyway. It will benefit you in the way you can sequence things on and off and the way you can control the equipment. So that's just something that I think works with all of it. So here's a quick diagram again of what I'm talking about. And I used a little bit different air handling unit diagram here, but don't get confused. We could use the same one right here and put a hot coil in that bypass duct. It's just a little bit different diagram. So you got cool chilled water, and so everything inside the central plant box, that chilled water pump and heating water pump, you already own those. You already own one set of pipe. Okay, so use existing central plant equipment, add piping to get a 4-pipe system. Interestingly enough, when we did the analysis, this is actually a higher energy user compared to the other analysis I'm going to show you. And there's a couple reasons why. And I'll show you the other example, and then we can go back to that. But because you're going to take advantage of some equipment you already own, we think this is the least expensive of these two options that we're proposing. And not dramatically different, but just to be clear, we think it's a little bit less. Okay, so the other option I'd like to talk to you about is DX cooling and hot water heat. And so this is a system that is currently at your middle school. This is the system that you're going to own on the new elementary school. This is the system we do maybe 75% of the time on our projects. There's quite a few reasons why. It has really nice energy performance. I can make the space whatever temperature I want it. It does a nice job of dehumidifying. And I can go on and on some of the reasons why we like this. But what this thing is we use your existing 2-pipe system you have today and your heating water equipment, and that provides the heat for the building. And then we would replace the existing air handling units that you have on the roof today with package rooftop units that are designed for VAV application. And that's how we'd make the cooling. New control system, the RTUs that serve the gym are still in pretty good shape. I think we could probably let those go. So this looks something like this. Very similar diagram to what you've seen before. And so rather than pumping chilled water around the building, we're going to make cooling with DX at the units. DX is direct expansion. That's a refrigerant cycle. Fancy lingo. Sorry. And then we'll use the heat when we need it, and then the units will provide the cooling in the summer. Now, a couple things on why we think this is a little bit better energy user. The technology in rooftop units today to make the cooling, the compressors, or what you might be familiar with, that technology has advanced greatly in the last 10 years. And so the combination of the higher efficient units to make the cold air versus pumping chilled water around your building and making the chilled water with old technology, and the fact that we don't need to run a chilled water pump during that time, that extra 20 horsepower is a pumping all the time, pumping that chilled water around, make this solution a cheaper solution to operate as you own it. It also has an advantage of it's a cheaper solution to phase into the project. We can add one of these units. It'll be standalone. It can, as we're phasing through the high school construction, if you all kind of get that in your brain and understand how that's going to go, this solution has that advantage there. Because we're replacing quite a bit of the equipment, we think this is a little bit more expensive. And as I mentioned before, as you can see that last bullet there, this is what's the system that's proposed for the new elementary school, and very similar to the system that you have at the middle school today. Any questions on that one? I think the next, this is energy after that. Let me get through this slide real quick, and then we can capture the rest of the questions you might have. And so one of the things that we have done in the last 6 weeks or so, as we've been getting rolling on the high school and the middle school HVAC design, is a thing that I call energy benchmark. And what that's a real simple term, real simple activity of gathering all your utility bills and putting them into a portfolio manager, which is, if some of you, that's the target finder tool that the EPA has out there. If you haven't seen it, it's a nice little simple tool. And what it does for us, it helps us understand how your buildings perform versus national averages and then versus premier performing facilities. And so I got 3 numbers up there for you, 3 lines. 16 is your Energy Star score today at the high school for last year, for 14 and 15. So 0 to 100, 100's perfect, 0 is not so perfect. You guys are 16. Not shocking for high schools of this age. We see it all the time. High schools perform poorly anyway because they're on all the time. You guys got stuff going on there morning, noon, and night. It's hard for those schools to, even though they're compared against other high schools, they just, every time we do this for school districts, they always turn out in this level. And so one of the things I talked to you about when we interviewed for this project maybe 15, 16 months ago now, maybe longer than that, was how we can see savings by improving the equipment, improving the sequences, and adding things like lights and controls and helping getting these systems working to get them to an average, even an average performer for high school, I think is really very good. And you can see the savings numbers up there. And then that Energy Star of 75, which we see for instance, the new elementary school that we're proposing, that thing knocks out 75 all the time in the other installations that we have. My expectation for that elementary school is to be a 75 or right there, depending on the weather and some other things. It'll be right there. High schools are good performing high schools are between 50 and 75 on the Energy Star rating. So based on how you're performing today, when we're all done with this thing in whatever 3 years, is that what we're talking about, something like that? We ought to be 50, 60 grand cheaper to operate a year just on utilities. And hopefully, with newer equipment on your maintenance costs too.
So what would be the difference in the installation, the 2 systems, the 2 choices?
I think it's less than 10%, something like that. They're both of those are within the budget that we've got in the bond right now.
Okay.
Probably the biggest thing, because I think I know where you're headed, really the biggest question is do you like, some people like 4-pipe systems. They just like the robustness. There are some things they like about it. They like having all of the compressors for that equipment in one location. And so the subtle differences in installation cost and energy savings is overcome by what they just prefer, what they like to work with.
Which gives the individual rooms the best control?
I think they're both going to be fine. I think that the solution that we showed you there with the new air handling unit equipment on the roof, that's going to win because we're the existing equipment you have now, which is all in pretty good shape and still has a lot of life left in it. It does have some age on it, and we would be I don't know what I want to say, compromising or kind of tacking on something to the system, but I just feel like the newness of having all new equipment serving all those spaces is going to give that particular solution an advantage.
Okay.
In the new gym, they've got a problem with the sound. The air conditioning system makes, will that all be eliminated?
Train, yeah, that's something we have to solve in the new gym and not do in the PAC.
Can you do a 5 or 10 year pro forma showing the cost of each and then the savings over one, or then that would help us?
Yeah, and today was just more of an informational session to give you kind of get your brain wrapped around where we're at. What I'd like to do is get the design evolving a little bit more before we do that analysis. It helps it be a little bit more factual because I got tools I can do it, but honestly, the results are only as good as the information that's in there.
Right.
And so I'd like to get the design a little bit more involved, but I can't show you something like that before we need to, ask you to make a decision.
Okay.
But I think you're on the right track.
Yeah.
Those are, these systems, either of these systems would be very common for high school in Kansas. We've done other systems, and if you want to talk about some of the other ones that are out there, I'm happy to provide some remarks on those. And that might be some other systems that you might have heard of, or the variable refrigerant systems becoming very popular today. The other one, a ground source heat pump or even water source heat pump, also very popular in schools. I'll tell you, both of those heat with electric, and even though they're really high performers, They are electric buildings, and in today's day and age, gas is, there's just the dynamics of the commodity. Gas is so cheap. Mm-hmm. Even the really high performing systems are really hard to heat with electric and make it work.
Well, I just want to go on record as saying I don't care 2-pipe, 4-pipe. I just wanted what they said.
Work.
No, I wanted what they said they were going to give us, and he never had nerve enough to come back and tell us he wasn't going to.
Yeah, we have to throw a net over that guy and bring him
um,
in here so you can get some satisfaction.
Yeah, so whichever way you go,
Beat him with a
I
pipe.
tend to remember those kind of things. So I'd like to know that it's there.
Yeah, I think.
And we spent $3.2 million to get 4 pipes, and we only ended up with 2. So I'm thinking we should only spend 1.1. I don't
All
know.
right, so Josh,
But anyway.
you get the other million out of that guy
You know,
with interest.
he was never bright enough to come back, or maybe he was bright enough not to come back. I don't know. But is it going to be a system that our maintenance guys can work on?
Yeah, and
Or
we've
will
had some
they
meetings
need-
already to kind of go through that, and that's where we've kind of drilled down to these options that I presented you today.
Okay.
We had a much more, in my mind, this is what I do, so a much more exciting conversation in Dr. Show's office a couple of weeks ago about all the systems you might consider. And we boiled down to these two as kind of at a high level where we think we're headed. Some of the other ones, either cost prohibitive or really so far away from the technology you have in the school district today, maybe not ready to make that leap.
And some required a technician who is specially trained.
That's right. Some of the newer systems are, once you get them up and running and learn how they work, are super. And you'll probably have other friends that are board members in other school districts that have some of this other technology, and that's why I want to bring it up. So at least you hear about it. And they've had a lot of success with those different technologies, but they've had a little bit of learning to get there. And in this case, I think we're looking at technologies that your maintenance guys are familiar with. They're tried and true. There's nothing we're talking about today that hasn't been done hundreds of times. The things I like about it is it's the manufacturers that are out there. The technology's getting better. There are lots of competition, so you're not down to one or two. And I want to make another comment about the elementary. That building or similar buildings like it has been built several times in the Kansas City market, and with just about every rooftop manufacturer that you could imagine on there. It's not just Trane. It's not just Aon. We've got projects that I can show you all over town with different brands on that roof with the same specification.
Okay.
So that part of it shouldn't be a.
But you understand what I was referring to.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
And sometimes the specification's open and they still complain that it's not open, which is the frustration part for people like me.
Right.
When or if you add the cooling unit to the high school, that if we don't do the 4-pipe system and you go with the other one, will it have expansion capability if you need it? Like at the hospital, we have rooftop unit number 1, and they just keep adding more VAV boxes.
That's right.
Hoping it keeps on expanding, and now it's taxed out.
Now and what I think there's a couple of things I'd like to comment on there. Sometimes if you make the unit too much bigger than you need, first of all, you get capital you've used before you need it. That's the financial part of it. The second part is the unit's so big it has a hard time operating on the smaller system. So what I'd like to suggest is that we provide us, if we know there's going to be some growth in a particular area, and we have some forecasts that it might be 2 years or 10 years, there's a history or a pattern there, then we might upsize that unit so we could capture the next 4 classrooms or something like that, or maybe 6. In your case, if you did another big addition over there, maybe 12 classrooms or more, we just put another unit up and serve it with another unit. And then you spend the capital on that project, which is when you should spend it in the first place.
Right. Okay. All right.
You weren't kidding. This was enlightening.
I know.
We do want it to work.
Very good.
And working is the terrific part. Yeah, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
That's the thing. A couple
Not
of
going to just look pretty.
yeah, it's honestly the rooftop units don't look that pretty, and so at least we could do is make it work for you,
And you'll have to have a fence around them. Ask the city. Won't you have to have a concealant fence?
Yeah.
Yes, I know. So it will
and
be
we've got
pretty.
some other architectural strategies that'll help conceal them too, so that we don't have too much of that. The part about putting the screens around it is the maintenance guys have to snake through the screens to get to the units, and so we like to figure out places to put them and sort of architectural enhancements that keep the screens off the job if we can. But we had those too.
Do the screens decrease the efficiency of the units?
Sometimes they do. It's not only the efficiency, but sometimes when it's really hot, It actually happens when it's really cold too. Sometimes those screens, if they're positioned and the wind blows sort of funny, you can get and they're gas fired. You can get flue gas back in the outside air intakes. You probably experience that maybe time again. And then sometimes when it's really hot, they'll restrict the airflow across the condenser and they trip off on a condition called high head.
Freezes up.
Well, actually the pressures get so high because you're not releasing any energy because the airflow across the condensing unit is lower, and then it shuts itself off so it doesn't blow up. Literally blow up. So
You just surround it with shrubs. We should have green stuff on top of it.
yeah, we need some green roofs. That's a great idea. You got that?
Green roofs?
Yeah.
Perfect.
It could be a revenue enhancer. We could enhance revenue.
We could grow.
Maintenance can't keep up with the ground, they don't need to mow the roof.
They don't need to mow the roof
That's
too.
right, that's right.
Yeah, gosh darn it. Any other questions I can answer for y'all tonight?
Those humidity things that we have at the hospital, in the surgery area, seem to be not a good kind. So I don't know.
Are they humidifiers or
don't seem to-
dehumidifiers?
Humidifiers, yeah, to keep
Yeah.
down the static, because we
yeah.
arc and spark in surgery, which then makes for
That's a problem.
combustion.
I understand, yeah.
Is that a problem?
Yes, it is. Well,
That's
for
a
the
bad thing.
patient usually.
For the
but,
patient.
you know, the rest of us are fine. But
Can be a shocking event.
Well, that's
it could be.
and that's
It
a
does
special
burn.
that's a
Yeah.
specialty thing for that kind of application. In this particular climate, and we do dry out in the wintertime, and that's not, you guys don't know that. We generally find that the weather is not so dry in our spaces that to justify the need for humidification.
Because they are very expensive. It
They
turned
are
out to be an
expensive,
unexpected
and here's
expense,
that they're hard to
a lot of them.
maintain, and they
They
generally
are.
don't work.
Right.
And
Yes,
so you'd rather
that's
just suffer through some of the low humidity conditions, and it'll be April, May soon enough, and you'll get all the humidity and then some.
Yeah, so I don't want those. Okay.
I did have a couple questions on the traffic study. So, and
Too late.
nothing real difficult.
Just kidding, go ahead, Errol.
On the traffic study, I'm sorry, Josh, this will only be the first of 20 nights we spend together like this, okay? On the phasing, we talked about 650 kids, but the traffic study talked about 450 kids. Is that trip generation going to be a problem? Because at Lincoln, I have the luxury of dropping my kid off in the morning, and I love the time I get to spend with her while I wait. And then I love driving by there and watching people have an extra hour to just line up for
Isn't that
nothing. So you said 50 cars?
Yeah.
Hey, we need at least 50 cars. I don't know what they do out there, but Josh is shaking his head. There must be a whole clan, like a group, a club or something. So I guess my thought is that if we're talking about a traffic study, I don't know how many kids we're thinking about putting in that building at first.
I can explain that. When we were doing our visioning work, one of the guiding principles was to plan for the future.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had KASB do a study for us, an enrollment study last January. And what the study said was for the next 5 years, the high school will grow in enrollment. The elementaries will stay very stable. So we planned for a building that's 600. And we planned for a building that could even be built onto those wings, because it was the wish of the visioning committee to look out 20 years from now. Sure. And so on. So we will have extra space in that building for probably a number of years. So probably we'll start out with less than 400 and then just grow to probably not more than 400 or 450. But the building will hold 638, I think, is actually the number. Okay. So that's that explanation. And when we worked with the city for the conditional use application, that was the information that we provided for them as well. What our enrollment study showed and what the traffic study and all of that. So they have that information too.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Rod.
Yeah, thank you. That was good information to have.
That was
It
good.
really was. And Dr. Stroh, community engagement.
Very good.
Thank you all. That was really good.
You get home by 9.
Don't even speed.
All right. As I said earlier, it was a year ago, actually last week, that we started our visioning and so on, and that was community engagement. That's a little bit different than what we have now. But that was very, very valuable to us. And will continue to be very valuable. So really, I used this quote last year, and I think that it is really a great definition of community engagement. And it's really just a process to build an ongoing permanent relationship and a collective vision with our community, and it benefits all of us. So as we talk about community engagement, I want us to keep that in mind. So we have the purpose, and you'll recall that a few weeks ago when we looked at our accreditation information, one of the strengths of the district was communication and community engagement. And so that's always an ongoing thing. It's not like, okay, we did that, check that off the list, we're done. That's something that we have to pay attention to on an ongoing basis. We have to communicate our vision for our kids to the community on an ongoing basis. And you set that vision a couple of years ago, that all our students will be college and career ready. They'll have the skills, knowledge, and behavior to hold life-sustaining employment. And then we want to listen to understand and not just respond. We don't want to be the ones that just have the information and give it out, or take questions and just, tell the answer. We want to listen to understand. We have a community that's rich in ideas, and so we want to make sure that true engagement means that we're listening to understand. Not that we take every idea and run with it. We certainly cannot do that. But it's important, I think, to hear those ideas and to value those ideas, to listen to those complaints and help people understand what we're doing about it, and also understand their point of view when they have something that they're concerned about. And then define what the community expects for our students. I think that's really important. We know what we expect from our students, but there are a lot of things beyond being college and career ready. We have to think in terms of social justice. We have to think in terms of individual growth for kids. Certainly we want them to have the skills, knowledge, and behavior to have jobs. That's critical. But there are many other pieces and parts to citizenship in a community and in a country that are very important. And then we need to communicate our students' needs. Often we, as parents, our kids are with kids that are just like our kids. And so we don't understand the diversity, whether it's diversity in terms of socioeconomics, race, religion, those kinds of things. And it's very important to teach children and to let our community know what the needs are of all of our kids. It may be for bigger programs, for more enhanced learning. It may be for things like the things that our communities and schools provide for our kids. So all our kids have needs, and it's part of our job to communicate that. And then we cannot work in isolation in education. We have to work within the community that we live in. So here are just a few of the things ways that we engage the community. We have a number of organizations that many of us serve on. This is just a very short list. I didn't want to include everything. We do a number of speeches. People, when we're at these meetings, people are very engaged with the kinds of things that we're doing in our schools and ask questions and so on. And then at the district level, check-in, KOFO, Ottawa Herald, those kinds of things. And while that might seem like a one-way communication, I can't tell you how many times, in fact, I was getting my license plates renewed today. And the woman who was preparing the sticker for me started talking about one of the articles that I had written. That was in the Ottawa Herald a few weeks ago. So even though those things like KOFO and so on seem like one-way communication, often people email or call or see us on the street and talk about those things. So they're not always just one-way communication. And then we've talked about a community budget group for the last couple of years. This past year, with the challenges that the state had, and the block grant and all of that, and our work on the bond, it was just not the right time. But I think we could possibly do that this coming spring. Of course, it will depend on what the court says and what the legislature begins to do. But I think it's important to start engaging our community, helping them understand how the district budget works and what are our revenue streams. Because I think people think that it's really complicated because they read about this thing and that thing, and really it's not as complicated. And maybe I think that because we have such a great budget director. But I always think if I can understand it, I'm a kindergarten teacher, anybody can understand it. So anyway, that's something we certainly need to consider. And then building level engagement. We have site councils and PTOs. Every one of our buildings has family nights. Elementary has a number of family nights. High school has other kinds of engaging nights for parents, newsletters and clubs and all kinds of different activities to engage families. And as I said, this is certainly not an exhaustive list. But I know in our board retreat, that was one of the things that all of you talked about that you would be interested in adding to that list. So on the electronic front, we have a Facebook page, and I don't know if this interests you or not, but a couple years ago we had 700 likes, and now we're up to, I think, 1,267. So people are a little bit more engaged. It would be nice to have 3,000 likes, just because I think that we can get a lot of information out quickly on Facebook. And perhaps the first snow day, if we say that's where we're going to announce it, we'll get a lot of likes on on those days. And then on our district website, we try to keep that updated with my newsletter, with all the new information about the bond project. And I think people are looking, when I'm around town at church and different things, people talk about what they've been looking at on our website. So I think that it's being used at least by a segment of our population, and then Twitter. So really, when we had our accreditation people here, our work is to create a system that everybody joins in on this journey to excellence. And this community engagement is a really important piece of that. So what questions do you have? What suggestions do you have? You had talked about having some groups of board members and engaging the community in what I call linkages. I don't know if you want to talk about that, if you've thought more about that.
My biggest suggestion would be that we need to increase our social media presence. When I go to the social media pages on Facebook, at least, it's very infrequent.
You're absolutely right, because I take all the pictures and I write all that stuff. And so I have about 40 pictures on my phone camera. I just ran out of time. So you're absolutely right.
I get that because I've ran Facebook pages, and it's exhausting. But you think it's going to be so simple and so quick, and in some ways it is, but it is exhausting. But I just thought that was a really good opportunity. Mm-hmm. And I'm seeing the same issue with the after-school programs Facebook page, because poor Jamie's doing that herself too.
And that's separate from us.
Yeah.
So
the
yes,
the Facebook page Facebook's a wonky little thing, and the less you post, even when you do post, the less you're going to get seen. And so that's
right. I know
kind of it's got a weird algorithm. And so that was just something I thought. And then if even the schools, I want to say, I think I liked the high school has one, but I'm not sure every school does. And if they do, they're very inactive.
That's right. And so it comes down really, I think, to time. And another part of that is we have to be very careful about whose picture we put on that. So, for example, I have some pictures of the induction of new Honor Society kids at the high school. And I just haven't had a chance to go over to the high school and say, look at these pictures. Are there any kids here that we can't post? So that's a whole nother piece of that. And another reason why other schools don't have it is because you always have to check that piece. The worst thing of all would be to put pictures of kids whose parents have said, I don't want my kid's picture on. So it's not as easy as doing our own.
Yeah, I get that. It's just one way. Well, it's
sure.
Probably the main way that the majority of my parent friends access information. And so it just seems like maybe the way we need to focus more energy towards. I don't know that we need to do less anywhere else. I don't know. I mean, it's a take, but I'm thinking that's the way the future seems to be going and has been going. And so just maybe putting a little more emphasis on that. If something else has to give, I guess we'd have to figure out what, but that might be something that we just want to look at and keep in mind.
I certainly will keep that in mind. I have to reflect on that.
Oh,
Thank you.
Online classrooms, I just learned about these. I don't know how many do it, but one of my kids' teachers sent me something to get access to it.
They're
and
cool. The flipped classroom.
So if I haven't played around in a whole lot, but just the idea of it sounds really awesome, and I think they all should maybe look at doing that. So, because anything I can do at midnight when I'm awake and the kids are asleep is just ideal for my house, because if it's something I have to physically go to, there's just not a lot of time to do that.
I love Moodle.
So, you like what?
Moodle.
Moodle.
Anything else?
I was going to ask the administrators in the room, are you engaged in the community? Are you three engaged in the community? I mean, I know you talk to parents that are upset about their kids, but do you feel like there's a good rapport with taxpayers? Do people respond to your comms, Dr. Cobb?
I would say at the high school, I don't know that it's ever been as good as it is now. We spend a heck of a lot of time, almost to the point where families don't like us very much. We engage in the community so much. And it's constant, it's 24 hours. You get phone calls.
That's right.
Sunday night at 10 o'clock because somebody's needing something, or I got a call Saturday morning wanting to know if I was in the office because somebody needed a copy of their birth certificate. That's our responsibility to have and to do, but these are the things that people rely on our schools for. We find a way to get it done. And in part because at some point in time, we're going to rely on them to do some things that maybe they don't necessarily want they need to do. So I think, we're probably more engaged than at times some people feel like we need to be.
I do like your weekly updates, because they're, when he writes for the articles for the paper, it's like a subject, in depth more.
Yeah.
But then when he gives a weekly update, I don't know if you all get those, but it kind of it's like thumbnail sketch of what OHS is doing for the week, and it's it's good. It's a informative yet quick read, and then it always reminds me of, crap, picture retake tomorrow. And,
Positive feedback on that and anything we've done, and it's something new that we started this year. And part of it I did just to let people know how much we do every day.
Exactly.
And how much there's this constant pull away from the classroom because we have all of this other stuff to do.
I don't get weekly updates. Harold gets 3, so he's going to send one to me.
Actually,
No, you get a weekly update from me.
I'm from you, but not from a high school.
Phil left out of Garfield. She doesn't love me.
Shannon, Josh, what about you guys? Do you feel engaged in the community? I mean,
I feel engaged in the community, not just because of my position, but, we're involved in lots of other things because we have kids this age. So, I'm at a soccer game and I have parents come up to me and talk about, hey, hey, so I saw the bond issue's got this thing
Mhm.
going on. So, you know, I probably have a different kind of role than Ryan in that respect, that I'm out in the community all the time, but more so because I have a lot of connections and know people, and they stop and they want to visit and talk about what's going on.
Oh, I think that's great.
As opposed to being, you know, I'm not involved in Rotary, let's say, or some of those civic organizations, because, you know, I have some good ones that take a lot of my time, but it's a very similar kind of thing, that, you know, people come up and talk about what's going on in our schools.
And one thing about the civic organizations is that almost all of them invite all of us to speak at least once a year, or when they don't have somebody. So for example, September and October, all our principals and I have spoken at Optimus, 6:30 in the morning. So, you know, and others will call us and say, so-and-so could you come and talk to us? It's kind of bad being the default, but.
Are you saying, Josh?
One of the things we've done just recently is shifted how our site council is working, and trying to expand our relationships with community organizations. In past, last year, we've got quite a few organizations that give a lot to our school or come in and do volunteer work. We've had kind of an ongoing thing with Trinity United, Distribution Center, and some of those kind of groups, but we're trying to pull them in a little bit differently. I think a lot that Communities in Schools is doing right now, kind of pull some other groups in, and then usually indirectly they pull us back out into the community.
Okay. That's good, and I
Any
appreciate it.
other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, board reports. Does anyone have a board report? Site councils that you've attended? Or
Garfield
activities?
met, we had small attendance, talked about the bond issue primarily. And it was no snacks.
No snacks.
It was a mediocre meeting at best.
Oh, gotta have food. You gotta have food at site council.
Mrs. Fanning always gives us candy,
Okay.
so we're good.
Anybody else? Well, I had lots of good stuff. I did the day on the job, on the 1st, on Thursday, that was, or the 1st of October. That was fun to see all the high school kids and to hear how they are mentally becoming college and career ready. It was pretty neat to hear how they're thinking about the future and what they're going to do. They're taking this pretty seriously. That was exciting. Then I always go to the First Friday Forum, and I agree that is a wonderful place to get our message out. Dr. Stroh always has moments that she's allowed to speak, a few moments. But and then I find that I tend to take questions after the meeting's over. People come to me because they know I'm on the board. So it's a great place to meet about 50 people. So it's always well attended. And then what else did I do? Oh, we had the middle school site council, and we had a chicken parmesan.
Oh, man.
Our site council. It was at lunch.
No
it was
snacks
really
and
good.
meal.
Derek Bland.
Yeah, and
Is
it
he
was
Keys to it?
and it was just fun to hear new things that are going to go on at the middle school, and excitement, enthusiasm. So yeah, so chicken parmesan, guys.
Okay.
And let's see. Oh, today I went over to Garfield and presented in a 2nd grade class there. They got the Kansas State Historical Society boxes for what it was like to live on a farm, and I grew up on a dairy farm, and so I spent 30 minutes telling these kids about chores. Chores was something they did not understand. One kid looked at me and he said, "So you were kind of like a slave, huh?"
And you said, yes.
I said, "No, I was not, because I was doing this for the good of my family and the farm." So, no, that was fun. It was a really good class, and it was a lot of fun. So that's what I've been doing. All right. We have no executive session, so let's move on down to personnel.
Madam President, I move that we approve the personnel report as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? If
I
not,
wanted to ask a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I forgot to earlier. Jeannie, I'm sorry. The life skills position, it says new position. Is that sustainable by budget?
Yes, because we get categorical aid for that.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right, because I know with our latest budget forecasts, I was thinking, oh, okay, thank you, sorry.
And one of the things with maintenance of effort with special education is you always have to spend more the year after. So that helps us a teensy bit with that.
Okay, that's right, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
All right.
So all in favor of the personnel, approving personnel, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign, 7-0. Thank you very much. Announcements?
I do. I have quite a few. Tomorrow is Lincoln Family Night at 6:30 and OHS Fall Vocal Performance at OMA at 7. On Wednesday is the KU Honors Banquet at the high school, and also the city will approve our conditional use permit.
Just FYI, I'll be emceeing the honors banquet, so if any of you want to show for that particular show.
I'll be there.
Wow.
My
Yeah,
daughter
we
was.
have I think we're going to have a belly dancer this year.
Ooh.
Is it you?
And I do have,
I'll
I
be
have
at
a
the
question
city.
on the Lincoln deal, because there's a thing going, is that fifth grade or is it all just fifth grade? Okay. All right, just checking.
And then on the 21st, next Wednesday, is City County USD at the county at 12 o'clock. And then on the 26th, which will be your next board meeting, be here at 5. From 5 to 7 is a special board meeting. Doug Meckel from KASB will work with us for a couple hours before the meeting, actually an hour and 45 minutes. I'll give you a 15-minute break, little recess. And there will be a light dinner, and then next week is parent-teacher conferences. And that's all I have.
Did you say 26th for that one?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So it's 5:30.
No, 5.
Good.
Oops. I'm gonna be late to my own funeral.
Trust me, as a funeral director, they don't let that happen.
Okay, well,
So,
all right.
that's one thing you will be on time for.
Thank you. Somebody
So
has to help me.
moved to adjourn.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor of adjourning, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign, 7-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Down 7-4.
Is that 2-1?
Hey, there was one, that's all I really care about.
That was pretty
It was a good one, was it? I gave up on it twice, but they kept coming back.
Probably 8,
So-
7-4.
Version do you have?
We,